What up, guys? It's your boy, Harry Wilmington here. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. Now, you notice my background looks a little different. So a friend of mine is going to be filming a student film here today. So they've rearranged my entire apartment. And so this is the look that I currently have going on. I don't know if I'm going to keep it or not, but I like this enough to where I want to replicate this. So let me know in the chat if you guys like the way that this looks, because I might try to make my set or my apartment look like this in one of the corners. Anyway, so I don't have a lot of time because they're going to be coming over here around 10 o'clock. But today, I wanted to talk to you about how to adapt the idea of just being yourself to the dating environment. And I think it's important to talk about because, there are a lot of guys that come in here and they say, women are crazy and I should be able to get women as I am. And obviously on this channel, I'm giving a lot of lessons about dating and what guys need to do to shift their behavior to be able to get the results they want. And admittedly, a lot of guys push back on that saying, well, how I am should be fine. I should just be able to be myself. And so, when I'm out in the world doing things, sometimes things happen to me that I try to then correlate to the dating world to help you guys out, right? So this happened to me yesterday, actually. So I'm going to talk about this. So I have a friend of mine that I've known since I was 7 years old. And at the time that we met, the neighborhood that we were living in was relatively middle class, but I grew up in a household where, I had suburban parents and I didn't really grow up with parents that were from the hood and things like that. So my next door neighbor, though, they definitely were like my friend had relatives in the house that had guns, they had drugs, they had big Doberman pincher that scared me half to death. And so it's just, even though we live next door to each other, our upbringings were a lot different. And so at some point I moved away from that home. My dad died and the pension that was left to us allowed us to move to a better neighborhood, and he stayed there. But we've been friends since I was 7 years old. So now I'm 41, he's 40. That's almost like a 34-year friendship pretty much. And so he got his life together. He's been in the Army for years, but every so often he'll come back to the States and he'll come and visit. So he came this weekend and he's like, hey, I'm going to be hanging out in Watts, which if you haven't been to California, Compton, Watts, Long Beach, those are areas that are well known for having certain, we'll say, rambunctious activity going on. And so I tend not to frequent those areas because I live in suburbia. Like, I grew up in a suburban household. That's where I'm at, right? But he's my friend. He was in town. And so I said, you know what? I'll come down to Watts and I'll visit him. So that's what I did. So I drove down there and I get there. And so he's hanging with dudes that are also from that environment. And so I'm always myself. Everywhere I go, I am my authentic self. I don't try to change up my talk to be slang talk just because I'm around people that are from that environment where slang's talking. No, I don't try to act like I'm in any kind of gang or nothing like that. Like, I'm just myself. My friend, he grew up in that environment, so he can very well be around that environment, right? And he has the swag of somebody that's from that environment. That's just how I grew up. But again, we're still great friends. But I say this to say, there were two interesting things that happened to me yesterday in that environment. Now, keep in mind, I'm coming from suburbia, going down to Watts, where it's known as the hood. There's a lot of activity that goes on there. And so just the people in that environment, they move differently than I would move, because I haven't had to grow up in an environment where my safety was at risk, where I actively had friends that ended up getting, unalived by various things in the environment or people in the environment. So the way I move is very carefree and happy-go-lucky and stuff like that. But there are two interesting things that I learned yesterday just being in the environment that I was in, because I'm not a frequent visitor. The first one was, so I get there and my friend offers me a drink. I get a bottle of water and I'm drinking this water. So after I get the water, he starts trying to introduce me to some of the other dudes that are hanging out at this spot we're at this guy's house for like this barbecue party or whatever, right? So one of the guys comes to shake my hand. I have a bottle of water in my right hand, which is typically the hand I would shake hands with. And so because I had my hands were wet, I was like, okay, the rude thing would be to shake this man's hand with my right hand because it's a bottle of water and I don't want to, it's just nasty. It feel weird. So I took my left hand, which was dry, and I went to shake his hand. And it was kind of awkward. I was like, hey, what's going on? Nice to meet you. And in the moment, This particular guy didn't say anything, but I could tell it was kind of like, what are you doing? Right. So then I go to meet another friend of my friends, and same thing. I say, hey, I want to shake your hand, but I got a bottle of water. So let me shake with this hand. This dude, I kid you not, like grabs my bottle, puts it in my other hand, and then shakes my right hand and says, hey, no, man, that's cool. I mean, I got to shake the right hand, got to shake the right hand. And then the other guy comes up to me that shook my hand before and said, yeah, man, you got to shake with the right hand. Don't ever shake with the left hand ever again. So in this first incident, this is an example of, I was thinking logically, hey, logically, if I do this particular move, it's going to be offensive. So let me do this one instead. Not taking into account the fact that in that environment, for whatever reason, the right hand is always the one that you shake with, because that indicates friendship and trust. Whereas the left hand is almost like you're darn near dissing somebody, right? But I didn't know that going in, because I don't typically hang in those type of environments. So I didn't know the seriousness at which they were going to take me giving them the wrong hand to shake, right? So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, again, keep in mind the environment I'm in. I'm in Watts. I'm in a location where frequently stuff is going down, but I don't live in those environments, right? So I'm dressed pretty much like I am now. I have a shirt on like this. It's been really weird weather here in California as of late. So it's been raining a lot. And so the weather's been a lot colder than it normally is. So whereas it would normally be like 70 degrees this time of year, it's been like 55, 56. So I'm outside with something like this on. I have my hoodie in my car just in case it happened to get cold. And guess what? It happened to get cold. So I said to my friend, you know what? I'll be right back. I'm going to run to my car real quick and get my hoodie. And then I ran to my car and I got my hoodie and I came back. And I'm thinking, okay, no big deal, right? I just had to run to my car and get my hoodie. I get back and my friend's like, again, and my friend, to his credit, because he knows I'm not from these places, so he's never like harsh on me. He's kind of chill, like, hey, dude, just so you know, blah blah. So I get back there, and he's like, hey, dude, just so you know, like, you can't be running around here, because when you ran to your car, dudes thought for a second that some stuff was popping off, and because nobody had time to get the strap, so you can't just be running around when you're trying to get stuff. And I'm like, oh crap, my bad, because in my suburban environment, if I just want to do a quick run to my car to get something, it's no big deal. When I'm in Watts trying to get something and I run to my car, people see that as a sign of danger. Like, oh crap, this guy has no other reason to run unless something is seriously wrong going on. Somebody's coming to get us. Somebody's out to chase us. Somebody's trying to rob us or gun us down or whatever. But I would never think like that, because I'm not from that environment, And so this is also why it's good that I have a friend that was there to be able to gently walk me through these major faux pas that, unbeknownst to me, I was making in that environment. All right. So what does this have to do with you and dating? Well, here's the thing. I think that a lot of the reasons that we get frustrated as men about dating is because we're used to acting in certain ways in our own environment, whether it's just when we're by ourselves as introverts or when we're around close friends or close family, that, to their credit, they're used to, and that doesn't really concern them because we're not trying to date them, right? But we're acting in a certain way that up to this point is totally fine with us up to this point. And then we get around women and we go out there in the world and we try to date. And we make the assumption that how we're operating at all times should be perfectly fine for anybody we're trying to get with. And there's some level of truth to that, because ultimately the woman you end up with is going to be able to like you and appreciate you, but that develops over time. But when you first start dating a woman, when you're out there in the market trying to, market yourself to women, and you're going on these dates and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to be the whatever version of myself is, and then you're failing with women, what you may not be understanding is that the version of who you are and who you're trying to be when you're with women is something that needs to be altered to have more success in that environment. Now, again, guys will fight me on this and say, but Harry, I should just be able to be myself. And I've quoted the movie Hitch before, where in that movie, even though I hate how the movie ends, he says the part where he says, who you are is a very fluid concept, which is very true. Because if you're realistic about yourself for a second, you understand this concept. Like, how you talk to your, parents, for example, ideally is different than how you talk to your homeboys and friends. How you talk to your homeboys and friends is going to be different than how you talk to your boss or your colleagues on your job, right? So you understand on some level that depending on the environment you're in and who you're around, that the way you speak and the way you're approaching people needs to change. But suddenly people want to start dating and think, I need to be able to be 100% myself. And it's not to say that who you are is bad or that be you can't be showing off certain aspects of who you are as yourself. But what it is saying is that you need to understand that when you're with women, certain aspects of how you aren't going to help you effectively in the dating market. Okay. Perfect example. Scratching yourself in your private area around your guy friends, no harm, no foul. If it itches, it itches, right? Now do that same thing on a first date with the woman. Like you scratch yourself and you pick up a fork and go back to eating. Well, in that moment, you were being yourself, right? Like when it itches, you scratch it. But is that an action in that environment that's going to actually help you woo women? Another example, when you're at home by yourself, you're probably not wearing cologne. You're probably not wearing a dress-up shirt and a tie. And so would you then want to take that version of yourself out to a date where you're not trying to smell your best, you're not trying to look your best? Of course not. Because, and the thing is, women understand that too. Like when you meet women on these dates, right? Are they being their inauthentic selves because they're wearing makeup, because they smell a little better, because they've done their hair a little bit more? Because going into this, on a day-to-day with the woman, she's probably not going to look like that. But would you then say that because she's dressing up for you on this date, because she's laughing at all your jokes and tilting her hair, that she's not being herself? Of course not. You'd be like, this is a version of her on an outing that I want to be able to see, because if we start dating and we go out more, I want her to look like this. All right. So she's being a version of herself. She's just not giving you the full package, because realistically, when you first start dating somebody, that's a lot to do. And it's just like with getting somebody in the bedroom, like you don't just go from like, hey, we're in the bed, to like getting it inside her. There's like a method to the madness. There's a thing you got to do. You got to seduce her. You got to talk some stuff. You got to kiss certain places so she can start getting lubricated to where she's ready to go. Right. And I think that's actually a good analogy in general about dating, is that you are at some point, the goal is to be able to be the best version of your authentic self as you possibly can in the relationship. But you have to seduce her and get her to want to be in the relationship, so that you can start bit by bit showing more aspects of who you truly are, right? So when you're on these first dates with women, when you're meeting them for the first time, you are going to go on these dates and show some aspects of who your true self is. But to go out there and say, I want to do all these things and be 100% myself when I'm on these dates, is the same as me saying, well, if I go to the hood, I can still be all wild and run around, and I can, shake hands people the way I want to, and they should be able to accept it. Well, in that environment, I could go out there doing all that stuff. I'm going to get harmed in a major way. And so when you go in the dating environment, recognize those first few dates, your goal is to make her comfortable with you. All right. And this does not mean you have to be your inauthentic self in order to do that. But it does mean recognizing what behaviors you possibly have that up to this point have not been serving you in these environments. Perfect example. If you're a guy that goes on these various dates and you just talk about yourself nonstop, you might be, in your version of your world, yourself might be, you enjoy overly talking about all the great stuff you do. Can you be that same person on a date? Yes. Will women want to stick around for a second date? Probably not. So you have a choice to make. Do you continue to be yourself and talk about yourself all the time on these dates? Or do you say, you know what? That behavior is not going to serve me in that environment. And so maybe I need to ask more questions. Maybe I need to listen more. And maybe that'll allow her to recognize that I actually want to get to know her, and she'll respond better. All right. Another thing, being yourself, right? I talk about this on the show quite frequently. You want to be able to text her and call her and talk to her all the time, because you really, really like her. And the woman you get with is going to be accepting of the fact that you want to text her all the time. Could you be that version of yourself? You absolutely could be. Is it going to keep a woman around long term, or is it going to make her feel like maybe you're too needy, too clingy, or maybe she's going to experience burnout? In my experience, I found that typically was the case. The more I was texting in the beginning, the less interested they got. So I could continue to be that guy because it's just being myself, or I could adapt and say, you know what, maybe less communication in the beginning is needed. Maybe I need to wait for her to start texting me more before I take that step. And initially, that might feel like you're not being yourself. You might make you feel like, well, if I do that, then I'm hiding my true self, and I want to be able to contact and yada, 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 or I want to be able to say these things or do this and that. And for one, if it doesn't feel like it's being yourself, then again, part of being yourself also is recognizing that some versions of yourself are just based solely on habit. And some of those habits could have been habits that aren't serving you, to the point, a guy that wants to be on the phone with a girl all the time, that's an example of some habit that you picked up that you thought was going to be helpful. But if you start to find that certain habits you have are not being helpful, it's okay to say, you know what, this version of myself where I do this thing, this thing that I'm doing is not actually helping me get results. So maybe, just maybe, I can take that, whatever I'm doing, and adapt it and change it to something that's going to be more beneficial, and then do more of that habit until it becomes natural. And then that will be the new version of me just being myself. Because women want to date the authentic you. Like, I'm not saying women want a fake version of you or that you got to completely damper down who you are right now in order to get women. But I'm saying that if you are doing things that aren't serving you, then it's just like, I'm an adult, right? The things I was doing when I was 5 years old, when I was just being myself at 5, aren't going to serve me as a 41-year-old adult. But to say that, but she should accept me as I am, including how I've been acting since I was 5 years old. Well, when I was 5 years old, I wet the bed a lot. Do I want to be in a relationship now, just being myself, wetting the bed a lot? Like, that wouldn't be helpful. So there's ways to go about moving that around. Like I said in my story, when I was in Watts, I don't know how to operate, but I had a friend that was there that was telling me when I was making mistakes and faux pas, because he's looking out for me. He's looking out for my safety. He's making sure that I'm not doing things that are going to be a threat both to me and to the environment at large. And when you're out dating, just recognize that you have to realize that there are some things that if you do them the wrong way, women are looking at your behavior and saying, if that's the version of himself that I'm getting, is that going to be helpful to me or harmful to me in the long run? If this guy's trying to pop up at my work all the time because he wants to surprise me or whatever like that, well, now I feel like I'm getting stalked. Is that behavior that I want in my life? And is that how he is? Because if so, I don't want that. Like, there's a bunch of examples of that I could give, but you get the idea, is that when you're dating, just understand there's two of you guys there, right? And so you're looking for her to be a version of herself that's going to make you attracted. And she knows going early on that she can't give the whole story away. This is why women won't, go to the bathroom in front of you in the first few months of dating. Or I've had women friends, people that I've dated that the whole time we were dating, never heard them fart. Or if they did, they would try to really hide it and never saw them go to the bathroom. Like, it's just like women have an understanding of there are some aspects of myself that even if we do get together long term, I don't ever need him to see. Now, obviously, you want to know the bigger stuff like their family life and stuff like that. But there's some things they recognize that, yeah, in my quiet moments, I'm going to be fully myself. And that's really the only time you can ever really fully be yourself is when you are alone, having your introverted time. When there's another person in the environment, you always have to take into account, is the version of myself that I'm being now going to be one that's beneficial to this other person, And if it's not, then you have to consider, okay, do I need to always do that? Hey, if you're a guy that plays video games nonstop, if you're at home, fantastic. If you get a girlfriend, realistically, you playing video games nonstop is gonna be a problem, especially for most women, because they want to have that time to spend with you as well. So this is why I say you have to learn how to adapt the idea of just being yourself to the dating environment. If you wanted to stay a solo introvert for the rest of your life and have nobody there to tell you what to say or have you feel a certain way, you got to act a certain way, you can do that. There are plenty of people that go their own way and are totally happy. But if you want a relationship, then you have to learn about yourself better. You have to learn about what idiosyncrasies you have that maybe aren't beneficial to the environment and to the dating world at large, and decide to adapt those. Now, like I said, in my environment that I was in, my friend was able to be there to help me. This is why I always recommend that you get a dating coach of some kind. I know sometimes they get a bad rap because it's like, oh, they're going to teach me how to approach somebody. But that's not being authentic and blah, 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 blah. Well, the reason they're going to teach you various things about how to date is because dating, like anything else, is a skill set. And the reality is you might not have all the skills in that skill set that are going to help you in the dating environment. And this isn't about changing completely who you are or making you like suddenly an extroverted person, because I'm very introverted and I've still done great in the dating world. But it definitely is about being able to figure out what your best qualities are, knowing how to highlight them, taking some of your not so great qualities and learning how to either change them up so they're more effective, or to say, do you really need this particular thing that you're doing to be part of your story and who you are? And then figuring out what the alternative solutions to those things could be. And I'd love to help you out with that. So if you need help in those kind of things, you can always go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, sign up for a one-on-one coaching session, or you can also go there and sign up for my Introvert Dating Success Coaching Academy, which is a video / one-on-one coaching situation. You can go there and check it out and see what it has to offer. If it sounds like something you want to try out, we can contact each other and figure that out. Okay. But I want you guys to just ultimately have the best success you can. And we're always evolving. So if how you are right now is not getting you your best dating results, you can always evolve to be a better person, and one that's going to be more effective in terms of being able to get the kind of women that you truly want. All right. So hopefully this helps you out, guys. Like I said, this is very short because I got a friend coming over to film in this environment today. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions you want me to answer on one of these shows, because I'm going to be doing probably another live tomorrow before I go on vacation, then you can leave them in the comments, leave them in the chat, or you can write me by going to the website and clicking on the contact tab. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am Harry Wilmington, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. I'm out. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Introvert Dating Success Podcast. Visit us at introvertdatingsuccess.com for more great tips on attracting women using your natural introvert charm. Oh, yeah.